broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Saul fans. Welcome back to the Better Call Saul After Show here on AFTERBUZZ TV, talking about Season 1, Episode 9, Pimento. I'm Matt Lieberman. Joining me as always, the full panel is here, Mr. Zach Wilson.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in.
The lovely and talented Miss Pegah Rad.
Hi, everybody.
Mr. Stephen Lemieux.
Hey guys, good to be here.
And our very, very special guest, Mr. Michael Mando, who plays Nacho. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really nice being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, and we're so excited to have you here. You, like, in the early part of the season, you were one of our, like, favorite presences on the show. We felt gypped, and finally to have you back on our screens this week was a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Albeit briefly. Yeah, so let's talk just a little bit about your time on the show before we jump into the full recap. How did you first come across it? Were you approached, or did you audition for the role originally?
I had the lovely casting director, Sharon Bailey and Shelley Thomas, approached my agent, Amanda Rosenthal, for a test, a taping. So I had sent an audition that they wanted me to do in two different ways. And a few weeks later, I had the good news that Peter and Vince wanted to fly me over to LA for a screen test. That's where I met them for the first time, and I immediately fell in love with them. They were like the most wonderful people to work with. And 2 weeks after that, I got the great news.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now a lot of American audiences probably know you best before this show from Orphan Black, and it's such a radically different kind of a role. Was there any trepidation playing this guy, playing someone who's so very kind of intense?
What do you mean?
Well,
in
just
what way?
Vic, I felt like he was far more emotionally driven,
Right.
And you got to play a lot more comedy, and he was far less in charge. Like Ignacio, to me, is somebody who, even though maybe he doesn't have as much power as he wants or deserves, definitely knows how to get it, and he's playing a long game.
Yeah.
Had you ever played a role like this before?
It's interesting. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things that I found about this character was in the description it said ambitious, it said intelligent, and it said knows when to apply pressure and when not to. And I had never played a character like that, and it's really fascinating when the writers want the actor to make intelligent choices. It's like you start working other areas of your acting brain. It's just different than like, for example, Vic, that's very emotionally driven, like you say.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't answer that question at all.
No, you did, though.
And I know we're live, so we can cut.
There's no cuts.
In your approach to this character, because you're dealing, so, like, especially at the beginning, so much with Tuco and like the level of insanity, was there anything you did specifically to play against that? Because it actually seems like Tuco with way more intelligence.
Yes.
Well, I think what it is I think that scene was one of the most important scenes into establishing who Nacho was, because we needed to clearly understand that here's a guy who needs to be able to communicate with Nacho, with Tuco, and get his point across with Tuco. So I think that's where you start understanding where this character is operating at. So that was a very good scene to set the tone for me as who Nacho was.
Yeah. Now, what I really like about your scene in this episode, and we'll double back and we'll talk about all of Mike's scenes, but what I like the most about it, we haven't seen a lot of Ignacio on screen this season, at least not since like episode 5, I think, was the last time we saw you.
I think episode 4.
Episode 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that in just a couple lines from Mike and your interaction with him, we get a sense of what the story is going to be moving forward as he becomes more of a central figure. The fact is, he's not happy with Tuco's leadership. He thinks that he could do it better. He's going out on his own, outside of it. And even though we don't get to see most of that process, even just checking in a little bit, making sure that, hey, this guy's still around, he's making moves for himself, and will continue to do so, is very, very important. And it's an ambitious way to build a series, I think.
Absolutely. Peter and Vince really take their times. These are people who set every brick of this foundation. They calculate it. Nothing is done accidentally. And so, as actors, we feel that we're in tremendous hands working with these people, for sure.
Now, when we're talking about, so he's buying up all these oxys, and this is a relationship that Price wants to continue to foster. Why is Ignacio, is he just trying to get more money? Is he trying to get more power?
That's really interesting. I mean, there's definitely something Peter and I talked about in episode 2, was that there was a certain there was a relationship with Tuco where there was a respect and maybe even a love. There's definitely a affection there between these two guys. And I think Nacho is one of these people, and I think we can all sort of relate to that, of feeling that you wanting more than the cards you've been dealt. It's almost like a peasant who wants to be king, and then someone says you don't have the proper bloodline. For example, like Tuco has with the crime world, and he feels deep down that he's willing to risk everything to get what he thinks he deserves. And I find characters like that really interesting.
Yeah, I think I got a lot, especially in that episode, the idea that Nacho sees that he can do this. He can do this probably better than Tuco in a lot of ways, because he's sitting there calculating. He's like, this guy's nuts, and he takes control of it in a certain way, but I could do it better.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that sense of, like I said, I think someone who wants more out of life. It's like we talked about this analogy, this sense of like a young crocodile, who's hungry and wants to feed so he can grow and be the king of the pond, or maybe even the lake. And who's willing to risk his own life. He's willing to die on his feet rather than live on his knees. And what's really interesting about him is that he doesn't do it with disrespect. He has integrity. He has respect for other people. He's fair in the way that he approaches Jimmy. So I'm just so excited about this character and where it's going, and I hope that the fans will continue enjoying it.
It's kind of a good criminal, as we said in this episode, good criminal Nacho, bad criminal Tuco.
You know what? I wouldn't knock Tuco down at all. I think just because me personally, I have such respect for Raymond Cruz, and I think he's doing such a great job. But yeah, I think the show in general, I think, touches upon these subjects. Touches upon subjects as, how do you balance your morality with the law? And how do you balance your personal ambitions with your moral compass? Where does right, where is wrong? Because as we know in the law, sometimes it's got nothing to do with what our moral beliefs are. It's got to do with how good your lawyer is and how you can maneuver your way through the written words and so forth.
And also what the views of people with power are and the laws that they get made, that they get passed.
Sure, yeah, and I think it touches on all of that, and that's what makes it so compelling. I think, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: do you consider Nacho to be a good criminal or a bad criminal? Is he the kind of person who keeps his word?
I think what I can say so far about Nacho, given that we don't know much about him, what I can tell you is what's really interesting about him is here's a character who the dichotomy of compassion and violence live within him as smoothly as sky and land. Here's a guy who's so comfortable with what he believes is his moral compass that he's willing to kill without ever losing compassion in a certain situation. And that's what I find really interesting, is that there is a moral code. There is a sense of the way things should be done, a fair sense of the way things should be done, but within that sense, there is room for atrocious violence. And that's interesting.
Yeah. I love this idea of good cops, bad cops, good criminals, bad criminals.
What a wonderful speech by Jonathan. Isn't that
absolutely
just beautiful? Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Thomas Schnauz wrote that and directed this episode, and he just got married a week ago with Kristen. So shout out to Thomas Schnauz if he's listening.
I saw the pictures of you at the wedding. Are you with him?
Yeah, we were at the wedding, and so he wrote and directed this, and I think he did an amazing job with this episode and the writing. So big shout out to Thomas if you're listening.
Yes, and this speech, what I love most about this show, like granted, and we've said it several times before on the podcast, that it could survive on its own. It doesn't need Breaking Bad. Maybe it needed Breaking Bad to get on the air because it's so rare that a show that's really a dark comedy about the nature of crime and about the lengths that we'll go to protect it and also to protect our own best interest. Yeah. It's rare that that kind of show gets greenlit, but every decision that's being made, Vince and Peter know that there is already a show on the air that this is going to be compared to ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And every speech, every little bit of dialogue reflects back on it. So you look at how Mike views good cops and bad cops, good criminals, bad criminals, and a bad criminal is someone who doesn't keep their word, and it sheds further light on his relationship with Walter White in the Progenitor series, because Walter is a terrible criminal who went back on his word several times, and to work with him in season 5 of that show, you have to see how desperate he is in that moment to do so.
But it also just informs how Mike approaches Gus, how he approaches Saul later, because these are all people who are criminals at the end of the day, but he treats each of them in a different light because this is his view on the world.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. So, do we know if Nacho is ever referenced in Breaking Bad?
He is. Ignacio is name checked once.
Yeah. The first scene that the first episode we ever get Saul, he's being thrown in the or like threatened with the ditch. It wasn't me, it was Ignacio.
Yes.
I'm always a friend to the cartel. So what is Nacho going to get up to with the cartel?
Who knows? That's exciting. I actually found, it's funny, I was on set and someone from the crew came up to me and showed me that scene, and that's when I found out. And I went to Nina Jack, one of our producers. I said, "Is this true? Is this who we're?" And she said, "Yeah, that's where they got the name from."
That's so cool.
So I'm so excited to figure that out and to figure that whole world out.
What's it like being a part of something as big as this? I mean, this is a huge show.
You know what's interesting about success is that it humbles you. In my particular case, it really humbles you. And to work with people that I respect so much, that I admire so much, that I'm learning from so much, it's just humbling, really. And it's just, it's gratitude. If anything, it makes you want to give your heart and soul even more, to push it as far as you possibly can. And to embrace, all these wonderful people who are watching this show and supporting us.
Yeah, it's a great show. You should be proud, man.
Thank you, man. Everybody from Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould, Thomas Schnauz, Jennifer Hutchinson. I mean, every writer, every producer, everybody on this show really is giving their hearts and souls, because we care about this. We love it.
Have you gotten to work with Michelle McLaren yet?
Yes.
How was that? Yeah,
she's
dynamite.
Oh my God, Michelle is one of the great reasons for one of the major puzzle pieces to how Nacho came to be.
Really?
Because the first episode that I've ever done is episode 2, and that's Michelle's episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, and honestly, I give her credit as much as I can, because I really owe such a big part to finding who that character is to Michelle. She was patient with me. She had very beautiful dialogue communication with me and her. Bob Odenkirk was extremely patient with us as well and helpful. And I think she helped me really. I mean, I know she helped me put those first bricks down.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't aware, Michelle McLaren is a director on the show, and she was a director on Breaking Bad. She directed many of the show's best episodes, including Ozymandias, which is maybe the best episode of the entire series. Yeah. And she's doing the new Wonder Woman movie.
Yes, and she's one of the best directors I've ever worked with. Michelle McLaren, if you're listening, this is a love letter from me to you.
From all of us.
From all of us. Yeah. I love you to pieces.
Thank you for your art.
She was at Thomas's wedding, too.
Yeah?
Yeah, we got to speak a little bit. I love her.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
From everyone here at AFTERBUZZ TV, we love Michelle McLaren.
Yeah.
Was it ever somewhat intimidating when you found out you were going to be on a show like this and taking on a character? When you're doing a prequel, it's always kind of... You got to have those questions like, was he in the show? Or I know we already went over how your character's mentioned, but you've got to be thinking like, am I going to die at some point because of that? Because I don't remember him.
You know what? I think I'd like to think of myself as an optimist, and I try always. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are moments where I do feel anxiety and I do feel insecure and all that kind of stuff for sure. But you quickly have to kind of look at the positive of it. And the positive of it was that this was exhilarating. It was like a roller coaster ride. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but we don't know what's happening. The actors have no idea what's happening. I don't know who my character is. I read the first episode and I turn the pages and I figure it out. And then a week before next episode, I get the second episode, and I start turning the pages to figure it out. So you're literally living the moment, not knowing what the circumstances of your actions are. So if you and I have a scene right now where we're all talking like this, and you say, I don't like what you said, I'll be back, and you leave that door, I don't know what you're coming back with. And that's what it's fun. It's like a roller coaster ride, and if you juice that up and you turn that in that way, you're walking a really thin line, and it's exhilarating because you know anything can happen.
Yeah.
When Rhea Seehorn was here, she talked about how Vince was
I
really...
love you, Ray, if you're listening to this. I love everybody.
She's
on
the
this
best.
show. She's cool, yeah.
She mentioned how Vince Gilligan was really, really particular about certain things. Like if a croissant was turned a certain way on the table, he'd stop everything and move it. Was there ever a time where you experienced something where he was really particular about something, or...
Well, I think what I can tell you about that is it's such a heightened... exhilarating. I'm trying to use another word, but it's such a heightened. How do I say? Really, yeah, it is. It is invigorating to feel that every detail has an importance.
Right.
If you notice, for example, the colors. You must have noticed the colors, right?
Oh, yeah.
The blues and the reds and what they represent and where Jimmy stands, and Jimmy's car that has that one red door, there's so many little details like that, and I think as an actor, it's like you become like a detective, and you start deducing as much as you can to sketch the psychology of this character. So
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Before we continue, really quickly, I need to talk about iTunes, and then we're going to jump into this whole episode. I swear, we're just so thrilled to have a great guest. Folks, the best way for you to support AfterBuzz TV, I say it every week, but only because it's the truth. The best way to support AfterBuzz TV is to go to iTunes, rate and review the show. Rate and review any of the shows that you listen to or that you watch on YouTube. It's quick, it's easy, it doesn't cost you a single solitary dime. How many things in the world? How many times?
Oh, it's absolutely free?
It's absolutely free,
Oh, free's
Michael.
good.
Free is very good.
Free's
How
good.
how often is it in life that you get to help out another person for free without leaving your chair?
Well, you know what? Since you're talking about helping out other people, we should send positive messages then throughout the podcast.
Yes.
I agree.
And then I'll completely, fully endorse it.
Positive affirmations. Rate and review the show. We put out over...
You're wonderful.
Thank you, Michael. You look so handsome tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Hey, love yourself. You're
There
the
you
best
go.
person at it.
There you go.
Yeah.
AfterBuzz rocks.
AfterBuzz affirmations.
Trust that it will happen, and it will happen for you.
And if you rate and review the show, not only are you helping us keep our lights on and doors open, getting great sponsors and guests like Michael, but you also get a great shout out here on the show.
You get a fantastic shout out. Once I ring up the reviews and ratings and go to most recent on iTunes, I will definitely do that. 5 stars, great podcast from CD Stinnett. I listen every Tuesday. I always miss a few things in the Better Call Saul AfterBuzz TV podcast always helps me put it all together. Thank you all. Great job. Totally on my wavelength by Slacker Incorporated. These commentators have a nice vibe going with each other, and they don't always agree, which makes it fun. And then I can chime in and comment as to whose side I take. But one issue they were all united on is that this show is and should always be about Saul, and not get too off track with being a Mike prequel show. I completely agree with this, and it's refreshing because I've seen so many fans who want it to be dark and gritty and Mike-centric. It's an interesting kind of view.
Yeah.
Brothers will screw him over. This was a comment after last week's episode. The brother will screw him over. 5 stars by Nikes. Now that he's cured, he will bring the case back to his firm and he will shove out Jimmy and leave him without the credit and without a dime. Love the show. And then pretty good analysis in a timely manner. One of the hosts sounds like Bob Odenkirk, and that makes this podcast the best Better Saul podcast out there.
They've been saying that
There you
for a
go.
month.
Who
and I
sounds like Bob?
Matt.
It's wholly inadvertent.
I heard it in the Holy.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, now
true.
you're doing it.
Now I would say I put it on just a little bit, but people were calling it out long before I realized it. But
It's only when he gets really worked up is when he
It's just there's
Have
a
you
little
met
bit of a
Bob
rest.
before?
I have never actually met Bob before.
Bob is without a doubt in my mind one of the coolest guys in show business. He's like a big brother to me. He's just awesome, and I hope you guys get to meet him. He's so generous, so talented, so well read, and I can't say enough good things about him.
Has anyone ever told you that you're like the nicest guy ever? Because you like make a point to be really nice.
You know what it is? I just think that life is short, and I've been through enough crap in my life to realize that the dark route doesn't lead anywhere. And there's more truth in love, I think, really. There's more truth in being open
Amen.
and giving love to other people than, screwing each other up.
Amen.
you got to keep your word. That's what Mike says.
Yeah, you gotta be good. You gotta be either a good criminal or you gotta be good anything. And
Good
you can put-
anything.
Yeah.
You can be a smooth criminal. You can be a good criminal.
Okay.
Michael, though, we got to get Bob in here and have a Saul off and
Have a Saul off?
see who actually has the better Bob Odenkirk voice.
I think Bob Odenkirk would have the better Bob Odenkirk.
You would be surprised. He's got to defend his title.
Okay, so let's jump back. Let's finish out Mike's storyline, and feel free to chime in at any point, Michael.
Sure, yeah.
So this scene where he's standing there with the two other crooks, Stephen Ogg is the guy with the beard on the left, and then on the right, unfortunately, his name is not listed on IMDb, but he's White Power Bill from Arrested Development. I'm wearing an Arrested Development shirt right now, so that made me really happy. But I love this scene.
Yeah.
So very, very funny, and just a great way to show character with Mike. It's just, he doesn't need a gun, and this guy's just running his mouth, and we're just like, man, he is just going to take him apart.
David Reynolds is the actor's name.
David
for
Reynolds is
White
the
Power
other
Bill.
one? Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
What I love in this moment is the framing of this scene.
Because he looks so short.
Yeah, because we think of Mike as this commanding presence. Like, to us, he always feels big in his scenes. Like, he's going to just take you down and, like, with the flick of a pinky.
Yeah.
And in this, he's just towered over by these two guys, but he's just the calmest man ever.
And he's standing there only carrying his pimento, the caviar of the South.
He brought a bag lunch.
A pimento cheese sandwich. The man knows what he likes. I appreciate
The
that.
caviar of the South.
Yeah, and this guy Price, who was it who said he was like Walter White, but like
Yeah, he was like
lame Walter
He
White.
was like the lame Walter White. It's like if they were gonna do one of those Rob Lowe commercials. Hi, I'm Rob Lowe, and this is like didn't graduate from high school Rob Lowe. You'd be like, hi, I'm Walter White, and this is I stayed a teacher in school Walter White and never got cancer. Like,
He's hilarious though. He does such a great job on this. Yeah.
Oh, he's coming back.
No, on this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Supposedly he has a yo-yo video. I haven't seen it yet, but that's it's supposed to be hilarious.
Is it tied to the show?
No. It's something that I just heard. I did a podcast with Vincent Peter, and they were telling me that you have to watch it, and they mentioned it in our podcast that's airing after this show. So I'm just kind of repeating what they're saying, and supposedly it's a great.
when it comes to like comedy with a character who looks the part, and he doesn't have that many lines, to be perfectly honest. You gotta play it so well to hit those marks that really make people laugh. So like when he's like waddling over to get the $20 bill that he dropped, like every part was just on point. So when you see him, you're just like, this is amazing.
Well, he's just playing it extremely real. Like, he's just playing it. If this was that guy in this situation, he would be this unprepared. He would be this nervous. He would be a bit of a chatterbox. Like, that's just who he is. Like, that's just, it's so very, very true and honest. And I think that's what this show does so well with its comedy, is it's nothing extremely ridiculous. I mean, granted, Chandler Toilet maybe a large exception.
No,
but when it comes
really made that.
but when it comes to people are always played as very, very real, and no person wants to believe that they're a criminal, and that's been a running theme through this whole season.
I think you just laugh at the relation of how realistic it is. Like with Jimmy.
Yeah.
When he has to plug in his cell phone to actually turn it on, when he's just like turn it on, it's like got to go over and plug it in. It's just something we've all felt where it's like, damn it, gotta go do this. Like, it's just the connection that it has with us as a real person is what so many shows kind of lose because they're trying to make it to that 50-minute episode.
Well, it's just they don't have time. Like this show, they're allowed to play it as slow as it needs to be, as fast as it needs to be. We packed a lot of plot into last week. This week, a little bit slower, and it's far more about people's reactions to big events.
Yeah, it helped that they got that second season so early because it meant that the writers could really just like sit down and be like, okay, we have 20 episodes to play with that we know we have. What can we do to with that time?
They let it breathe, and I think when you're dealing with subject matters that are heavy and multidimensional, what happens is that when you do let it breathe, you give time for the audience to develop their own personal opinion and not impose it on them, which I think is very very smart filmmaking.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I think that this episode really locks into what this season is about. And a lot of fans, from the beginning of the season, they're like, when are we going to get to the dark stuff? When are we going to get to the crime? When are we this and that and this and that? That's not what this season is about. This season is about getting Jimmy McGill to the place where he recognizes that he will never have the law career that he wants, that he will never have the respect from his brother that he deserves, that he feels that he's earned, that the important people in his life, or at least the most important person, has turned on him. Getting someone to an emotional place where they can explore the idea of criminality and not have it be forced, not have it be ridiculous. With Walter White, it required a cancer diagnosis.
Right.
With him, you really have to figure out what is that cut to the core moment. And I feel like this episode, we got it. And dare I say, I called it last week.
You did.
I called it out loud. I just up and down and up and down and up and down.
I don't think you did.
I totally did. Play back the tape. Can we cut to a clip?
Don't believe him. We don't have a clip because it never happened.
We knew that.
I'm going to trust her. Who's right about this?
Matt did say it.
We knew that there was going to be a betrayal. And if you're calling it, I called it too. We knew that Chuck was going to betray him.
But I also
in one
called
way or
that it
another.
was back in the past with the mailroom one that it was him too.
Yeah.
There's no way that it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, we know it was at this point.
Now we don't. Now we do.
I'm saying at this point, we know that
Fair
it
enough.
was.
No fighting, guys. This is a positive podcast.
We just got a positive review because of the fighting, Michael.
So okay, I see. It's a bit of drama.
It's a little bit.
You're
Unique
allowed
conflict.
to stomp on Matt's legs, but only one leg.
Only
You
one
can't
leg.
have both.
Yeah.
You can't have
Can't
both.
crack too. That's not fair.
Yeah, but you really have to be excited about it after it happens.
All right.
So yeah, we get this deal going down. We'll get back into Jimmy in a second, but I want to finish out Mike. So we get this deal going down between Ignacio and Price. We talked a bit about maybe his motivations for it, but I feel like this is something that's going to keep going, that's going to continue to escalate, and eventually has to go wrong. I mean, Price, he's not a smart criminal. He's going to do something wrong, right? Am I crazy for assuming?
Well,
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Price could do something wrong, but his end of it is so simple. I think that the real worry would be that Nacho might push it too far.
I think it's done. I think that was it.
For Price?
Yeah, I think that was it for Price. I don't think we're going to see him again. I think it's going to be a case of Mike put it in perspective. You're a criminal. And he doesn't want to be a criminal. He doesn't want to view himself as a criminal. He can't look in the mirror and say he's a criminal. And I think he's out.
What about the line where he said, I can get more pills?
I think he sleeps on it, he decides. I think he's out, to be perfectly honest. And I think the show needs somebody to be able to do that. The show needs it to not be as predictable as for somebody to actually look at it from a third person after Mike says something like that and say, I'm not a criminal, I'm not doing this anymore. Because we've had too many characters that try to justify it with other ways, but when it's laid out like that, I think it's more meaningful if he says he's not going to do it anymore.
I agree with you, but how do you think Nacho's going to feel about that?
Yeah, he needs his pills.
I think Nacho's going to contact Mike to try to get to him. And I think that's what kind of drives the partnership between Nacho, because if you look at Nacho, or sorry, the person right in front of me as he's staring down as he's staring down Mike in the episode.
You're projecting.
I'm just hoping. No. As he stares down Mike in the episode, it doesn't feel like a I hate you. It feels like a this guy's interesting. Like, I got these three guys behind me, but they're useless because you're in front of me. Like, it feels like kind of a respect thing, and I kind of want to use this guy in the future.
Yes, I totally got that too. He was looking at him like, dang, like you're asking for this $20. I can maybe use you in the future.
I thought he was going to pull the van up next to Mike and give him a card or something like that. Like, I could, like, not literally a card. Like, I don't feel like you're the type that has a card.
He leaves matchboxes with
I think there's definitely a respect there, but I don't know that it goes beyond. I don't meet many smart criminals. I recognize my own ilk in front of me. It's just a moment of mutual respect. I feel like if he does get put in a corner, that is someone he'd rather have as an ally than an enemy, but I don't know how far it goes. That's just me personally. Also, the dog that got him in the door with this criminal enterprise goes to lovely Kaylee, who loves a dog, and isn't that great? And it's always great seeing Carrie Condon as Mike's daughter-in-law.
Yes.
All right. So Jimmy lays the smack down on Schweikart in the courtroom. He's feeling really jazzed about himself. But as Chuck says later, like it's a softball. Of course you were going to win.
Yeah.
And that should be our first clue. That should be, if we haven't had several all over the season, that he doesn't value anything that Jimmy's doing. And he's just very dismissive.
Yeah.
It's a very standard law practice to bleed people dry. Mm-hmm. And if you're paying a lawyer like a rate that's like $10,000 an hour or something like that, and they keep getting things like this from your lawyers, that's how you bleed somebody dry in this kind of case. So they're basically sending them so much work that it becomes impossible to even get through it to make the case happen.
Him.
Yeah.
And Chuck predictably wants to take it to HHM. Pegah, how did you feel about this? Was it a shock to you?
No, it wasn't a shock. I knew he was up to no good. I've never trusted Chuck. I felt sorry for him here and there, but I never trusted him. I knew that he was going to take it to Hamlin and then sweep it out from under him.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I've been looking at your notes, Pegah.
I take really detailed notes.
And they're just incredible. You've got, how many talking points do you have?
It's not talking points, it's just like literally what happens in the episode to refresh my memory.
She's got the script.
I want to hear. What did you think of the relationship between Bob and Chuck?
I mean,
how did you feel about it? Did you expect it? Did you?
I totally expected it.
What did you write down?
These are relax. I'm gonna turn this over.
Dear diary.
She doesn't need the notes, Michael. They're just for reference.
Just in case I forget.
I got to give a shout out to Eric Ventures in the chat who says, "Oh, cool, they're hanging out with Vaz."
Oh, Vaz, Far Cry 3. Yeah. Tell him a big hello.
There you go.
So we bring it to HHM, and Jimmy obviously not thrilled about it, but he's going to make it work. We've got a space blanket lining under the jacket, which I don't understand. And maybe, Chuck is so deluded that once he goes back into that house, he just passes off what he wasn't feeling when he was outside at the top of the episode as a fluke. That he's not cured, that, maybe he's doing a lot better, and because he was so focused, he didn't notice. But he's regressing, he's relapsing.
Maybe it's just like a safety blanket. Like he knows it's there in case he starts getting a little wacky.
It's like when you're sick, when you have the flu, like your fever goes down for a little bit, and then it'll come back up. Mm-hmm. I think he thinks, like, for that moment, like, he's like, oh, I'm getting better, but it still hurts. Like, he's still out there. And as he thinks about it, he, quote-unquote, feels that pain.
Yeah.
So he's doing whatever he can to abate it, and it's helping because he thinks it's helping.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel sorry for Chuck at this point in time. And you know what? It's weird to say that because he's hurt Jimmy so much, but you also need to realize that we got a flashback a few episodes of Chuck putting his ass on the line to get Jimmy out of jail for the stuff he's done. So it's kind of like if you know somebody all your life, it's very difficult to imagine them changing. And it's sad for Jimmy, but it's also kind of true. Like there comes a point when even if it's your brother, like he's not really going to accept you changing at the drop of a hat. And it'd be difficult to still work with you.
Sure, but, to not trust him, he's making big strides to show him that he's changing and he's working really hard on this case. Like, I just wanted more. I wanted more from Chuck.
You kind of label Chuck and the bad guy as a bad guy in this moment.
He is a bad guy.
It's terrible.
You label him as a bad guy, but look at the humanity in the guy. This is a guy who used his entire life to build HHM. This is a man who dedicated his entire life, and he says that, I dedicate my entire life to this. He doesn't want to let a con artist into it and rub the name through the ground. Not that Jimmy would do that, and not that I agree with him, but from a business perspective and from somebody who's devoted their whole life to something, it's very difficult to be able to hand over the reins or even hand over a potential for disaster to somebody who could ruin your life's work.
But here's the difference between a good guy and a bad guy. A good guy comes to you man to man, face to face, and tells you, listen, I love you, I am proud of you, I can't offer you a partnership, instead of shepherding out the dirty work to Hamlin, who's been eating all the crap for all these years.
I didn't say it wasn't a weasel, I just said I feel sorry for him.
The two-facedness that really bothers me.
Because if you look at him too, Jimmy doesn't want to tell his brother that he doesn't have a disease. Because he knows it would kill his brother to tell him that he doesn't have a disease and it would break their relationship. Chuck likes the relationship he has with Jimmy.
Yeah.
He treasures that. Jimmy's taking care of him. It's his brother. He just doesn't want him at his company. And he knows it would kill Saul to tell him that, so he goes through different ways to not tell him. Saul goes through different ways to not tell Chuck about his illness. They're lying on different ways.
But here's the difference. Even after Chuck has been exposed and he has done a great wrong to Jimmy, Jimmy still does not break his heart by saying, "You're crazy."
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I agree with him, but I mean, if you look at Chuck right now, he's got no one to care for him. He's got no one on his team. Hamlin's not going to back him. He's just going to be loaning away in that house with no one to bring him food. He's going to go outside the house, probably have like a heart attack or something, and then the company's just going to go to all of Hamlin and his life where it's already ruined anyway. I feel sorry for him.
You know what? What's really interesting about this, and I agree with both of you. I think you have a great point about integrity, and I think the person who is honest and straightforward is a sharp shooter has more integrity than not. But I love the compassion and the empathy that you have towards character. A lot of times in TV, you have people sort of want to kind of paint a character one color. Mm-hmm. And to hear someone speak with such empathy of the complexity of the human the human situation that he finds himself in is really nice to hear.
Well, I like that Vince creates a world where these characters are believable enough that you can do that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's some characters in TV shows where you're like,
I think it's time. Sorry, just real quick for some AfterBuzz affirmations. All of you out there.
Yes, Pegah, you gotta get on this.
Yeah.
You too.
I just want to let you know I love each and every one of you. You're delightful.
Never give up. Always keep going.
You warm everyone's hearts with your presence.
Hodor.
You filled me up, Chandler. All right, sorry, Zach, you were saying.
What did we just do?
My whole thing with Chuck is that it's coming out. I don't think he was really protecting Jimmy in this circumstance. He thinks he's protecting Jimmy from like harsh words, but really what he's doing is protecting himself. He doesn't want to he selfishly doesn't want to tell Jimmy that he doesn't trust him because he's not putting him in as partner. Jimmy's not trying to turn into HHMM. He just wants a job like on this case.
He just wants to work with his brother on the case that he found.
Yeah, but like Chuck doesn't, and back to the mailroom days, like him not wanting to tell Jimmy to his face, I think is less, I don't want you to have this job than it is, I don't want to have to deal with the hurt that will come towards me once I do that to you. Because it hurts Chuck to say that to his brother. Because he wants to look out for him, but he's only protecting himself. It's like if somebody has an affair. You're protecting yourself in a lot of ways.
But you're also protecting your partner.
Yeah.
Or trying to put off the hurt.
You're talking about the relationship between
Jimmy and Chuck.
Oh, Jimmy and Chuck. I thought you were talking about Hamlin and Chuck.
No, although
that got a little convoluted with the affair thing, but I'll admit.
It does sound like that. I mean, just to mention that, I think I sometimes read comments about people talking about Patrick Fabian's character Hamlin, and a lot of people call him a douche. That seems to be the thing that keeps going. But I think in this episode, he shows a level of loyalty to Chuck that is unprecedented. Really,
Right, I see that.
I mean, he literally puts himself in the line of fire and never once deviates to honor the friendship that he has to Chuck. So I think, we should maybe think twice about calling this guy a douche. He's got. I agree. He's got. I mean, who does that? Would anyone go on for 3, 4, 5 weeks, a month, 2 months being the bad guy when he's actually covering for his buddy or his partner?
The only time we've seen him do anything like really flip out at anyone was when Jimmy put up a billboard like completely mocking.
Right.
Hamlin himself.
And even there, he played it. He still kept his integrity. Yeah. So I'm going to give a big up to
Patrick Fabian.
My buddy Patrick Fabian, who's doing a wonderful job, I think, with this character.
Yeah.
That's a difficult character to play.
In some ways, he's kind of the most compelling character on the show to me right now because he's the person we know the least about. We've been presented with this one face of him, but even in this episode, you look at the way he colors the dialogue when he's chewing out Kim, and you can tell he doesn't believe in what he's saying.
Yeah.
You can tell that on some level he's doing this out of loyalty because he has to protect his position and protect Chuck, but he doesn't believe it. And I really want to know what's going on. What is his inner life? Because I feel like we have some idea of everyone else's, all the other main characters on the show, except for this guy. And I feel like this is the turning point.
We're talking about Hamlin?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I want to know if him and Kim have a past.
Well, I don't think that they have a past. And you guys keep this
Might
conspiracy
have
theory.
a future, though.
No.
Ham Kim.
This relationship.
Ham Kim.
Would you like to see?
No, I don't want to see it because I
It
like
would
Kim
kill
and
Saul.
I like Kim and Jimmy together.
It would
You
kill
want to see
Jimmy.
Kim and Jimmy together?
Hashtag
Yes.
Kimlin?
For
No?
sure. I want
No, Ham Kim.
to go.
Ham Kim?
Ham Kim.
You're the worst at picking ship names.
I'm the worst.
No, I mean, I like him in that moment in the boardroom. You can see that he just gained a ton of respect for Jimmy. Like, finding this case, sniffing it out, doing this legwork, he suddenly gains, like, this is not some, like, crappy public defender. This
Yeah.
is a lawyer with some chops.
Yeah.
But then he, like, struggling to find those answers, he just keeps going back to this. The partners have decided, because that's all he has.
So-
You would think with all of that respect, you would just give him a darn office to work. I mean, what else do you want? Like,
He wants Chuck's love.
So let me ask you this. What do you think the relationship with Hamlin and Chuck is then?
Chucklin.
Because it's Howard Hamlin. No.
Hashtag Chucklin.
No. It's Howard Hamlin and McGill. HH&M. It's Howard Hamlin and McGill. But do you think that Chuck kind of was the driving force and maybe put Hamlin in his place? And now Hamlin's kind of just enjoying being the person in charge, but he still just cowers in fear before Chuck.
I think that he knows who gave him his position. He knows who gave him partner. And look, I'm just going to throw this out there just because we're all doing conspiracy theories. Chuck, age 70, unmarried. Hamlin, we don't see no ring on that finger. Intense loyalty. J. Edgar Hoover, Army Hammer played him in the movie. The guy who followed him around for years, and everyone wasn't sure, but they were lovers.
Step away from the mic.
Listen,
Hamlin wears a nice suit.
Hamlin wears
Chuck's got that silver lining.
yeah.
Not that there's
Neil
anything
Patrick
wrong with
Harris
it.
wears a knit tie in the Heineken commercial. He wears a knit tie.
oh, my
Look, there's
gosh.
nothing wrong with it if that's the case, but it could be conspiracy at this point.
But step back.
I did have another tie-in. This might be pulling at strings though.
Oh my gosh.
So much. Me and Matt have this rapport where we just hate each other for our ideas.
I love you so much.
Okay.
Oh, that's where this is happening.
It's their like.
This is where this is happening.
It's the inspiration for this theory of theirs.
There you go.
They compare the criminals to the lawyers and the people to criminals. Like they have this whole net which kind of casts around humanity in this show. And if you kind of think about it, it's Chuck's past is preventing him from going forward to his future. And that's kind of what we see today and with criminals, in that their past prevents them, even if they've changed, even if they are somebody you can trust now, it's still their past and it's still what people knew them as before that prevents them from doing what they want to do and
Yeah.
what they feel they deserve.
The past and also the perception of people. I mean, here's what I found. I mean, there's so many wonderful things about this show because of the writing is so great. And I think one of the interesting things is for example, you put the Kettlemans and you put, Tuco side by side, and you say nothing, and the fans will say, "There's the villain, and there's the good folks," right?
Yeah.
But in this show, it's not necessarily the case, and you've got the Kettlemans who are, cute and lovable and everything, but they're big-time criminals.
Yes.
$1.6 million.
She's insane.
There's no money.
And Tuco was just standing up for his grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abuelita.
In some ways, and I think you're right. I mean, to add to what you were saying, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there. We have yet to meet the other Hamlin.
Or Howard.
No, it's Hamlin, and McGill.
Is it? I thought
Yeah.
it was just Howard Hamlin McGill.
No, because it's last names when you have those three. I'm pretty sure it's Hamlin,
Hamlin,
McGill.
Hamlin.
Couldn't they just use like Hamlin squared McGill?
So the other Hamlin's his father, I imagine.
Or brother or cousin. I mean, it could be
Uncle.
anybody, but who is it? Conspiracies.
Definitely. Well, any other final thoughts? We're unfortunately running out of time, so I feel like we have to
can
jump
still
to
do another
predictions.
5 to 10 if we need it.
Is that
Yeah,
so?
because usually Raw goes till 9:15. We have their time slot.
Super.
I do want to say, wouldn't it be a weird or kind of interesting situation if it wasn't a father-son or something like that? What if Hamlin and Hamlin are brothers?
It'd be a nice parallel.
Because then you have the two brothers who actually are working together, and then you have McGill, who has a brother who's capable, who wants to do it, who brings him a $25 million
Oh, I
case.
love that parallel.
And they don't want to work together.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to get into his inner life in season 2, is to have his brother come back from God knows where and want his rightful seat at the head of the table. Now he's under attack from Chuck, this guy who he admires, who he has been doing all of his dirty work for years, and now his brother's trying to take what power and credibility he's earned, rightfully so, since he's been gone.
Oh my God, this is a predictions question. I guess we can.
Yeah,
get
we're deep in
yeah.
predictions by now.
Yeah.
Do you think Saul would out his brother on the mental instability?
Oh God.
No.
No, that's not Jimmy.
No.
Not to his
No?
brother. No.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
his way of getting back at Chuck is to simply walk away, because that's the biggest blow he can deal to him, is to leave him on his own, because it forces him to either deal with his mental illness head on or starve to death, basically.
And what a great scene that was, that last scene.
Really
It's
wonderful.
the third time that I see it, and Michael McKean and Bob do such a wonderful job. And again, to mention Thomas Schnauz, who wrote it and directed, they just did a really great job with that.
It really was stellar. I love the way that it builds. I love the moment of reversal.
Yeah.
The look on Michael McKean's face when he's been found out, and then the outburst. It's beautifully played and
Yeah.
beautifully
So
filmed.
good.
Yeah.
I also think that revenge for Jimmy is going to be success. Showing him that, you didn't give me a spot, but this isn't going to put a damper on my, being a lawyer, and he's going to come back.
Well, we know where Jimmy is now. We know where he is from Breaking Bad. He's got his own firm where he's working with criminals. Chuck would not respect that.
No.
So using that as a thing for revenge,
Maybe
it's not going
before,
to work
yeah.
out. Yeah, I think there's either Chuck has to die. Chuck must die, or there's just going to be a time where he cuts off all contact, and this might have been the time where he cuts off all contact. But I still feel we need that relationship in season 2, so I hope that's not true.
It's not going. It's not going away. It's definitely strained, but it's not going away. Here, let's roll the predictions sound effect, because we're deep in that territory anyway.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
What do you think of our flashing seizure lights?
This is
Aliens come down.
It's for predictions?
Yeah, it's for predictions.
Oh, wow.
That's what we do. We're
like
very
this.
celebratory. Well, here's the thing. I think that Pegah raises a very, very strong point. Living well is the best revenge, and I think that definitely would occur to Jimmy if not for the fact that he is utterly devastated and heartbroken to be betrayed in this way.
Well, he's being told almost his worst fears at this point. He has, like, for Jimmy, he has put in the work.
He's worked so hard.
Like, the difference, I think, that Chuck's not being fair about is that, like, yes, Chuck was on this path from the get-go, and he did really well, I'm sure, in school, and got his law degree from a prestigious university, and, like, did all the things the right way. But Jimmy was working from a lower position. He got himself into a hole, and he had to struggle to climb out of it. The only way to do that was doing stuff like the University of American Samoa, and then, like, using that to get to that same place. There's almost a certain amount of more respect in that matter to somebody that has to climb up from the bottom,
Right.
that fell really hard.
We started at the bottom, and now we're here. But we could be here if Chuck would just give me a damn job that I
the
deserve.
whole crew could be effing here,
Yes,
but my brother's just kicking me out.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or I'm walking out, I guess. whatever. But in terms of predictions, here's what I'm thinking. And folks, if you didn't see the next time on scenes and you consider that a spoiler, maybe skip over the next 40 seconds because I'm just going to outline them real quick. Basically, we see that Jimmy returns to Cicero. We see that he reunites with his old con buddy, and that maybe they're pulling some of their old tricks. We see that he is utterly dejected working with the elderly folks doing bingo. He is just not having it one bit.
He's slipping into a depression.
Absolutely. And it's when someone is vulnerable that they start to make risky and dangerous choices, like working with criminals. Because every single time we've ever seen him cross the line in a con man slipping Jimmy way, it's when his back is against the wall and he's desperate. Like, I was just listening to you talking about it, and I'm like, there have been times where he's crossed the line. I mean, in the first episode, he's pulling a con just to get a case. But it's because he's so utterly up to his eyeballs in debt. He's living in his office in the back of a nail salon. He's barely pulling any money doing these public defender jobs. He was so hopeless and helpless that he returned to some of his old tricks. When he is put in this vulnerable position, he's going to make some very bad decisions.
Do you think it's somewhat comparable to like an addict? Because it seems like he's kind of like it's a, what's it called when somebody falls off the wagon? Yeah, it's like a relapse. Like Slippin' Jimmy is kind of his addiction because he feels like he's good at something. And when he kind of falls off the wagon of things going his way, he relapses back to Slippin' Jimmy.
You know what's interesting I find is that when I notice Jimmy's interactions with the people in the underworld, you know, his friends from back home in Chicago, and the way he interacts with people in the HHM offices, it seems that there's an element of realness. There's an element of sincerity among his friends, and an element of you feel like they're more real with each other than the world of HHM. So I wonder, does that play an impact into why Jimmy has this sort of nostalgia over that kind of world where people kind of communicate maybe in a more sincere, open way?
They were on the level. Well, I think what this show casts a very strong light on is that what people are doing as lawyers and what he was doing back then, other than the pretense that we are protecting people, because these are people who are in it for the money, really, really, really. They're doing ultimately the same thing, except one is earning money by, hopefully getting the right people off or getting money to the people who deserve it, and the other way is by conning people who maybe also deserve it or don't. I don't think that it's an addiction, going back to your point, Stephen, but I do think that there is a comfort in knowing that when I deal with these people, they see me for who I am, I'm good at what I do, there's respect for me here, and I don't have to worry about them double dealing behind closed doors. I can see it right there. Yeah. If someone's going to screw me over, they'll tell me to my face.
I guess that's sort of like, but I actually like the addiction comparison because it is falling back. It's bad for him. This is something that is bad for him, and he knows it, but it is comfortable, it is familiar, and it's easy. For Jimmy, it is easy to go back to Slippin' Jimmy and con somebody. He knows it.
What I'm trying to say is there is a moral code as well within criminals.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of that we should all also consider is that people who are doing crime or who are from the streets, there's a very strong moral code, and there is a I don't want to be quoted on this and misquoted on this, but there is a kind of integrity in what they're doing amongst themselves. It's not a world of chaos. It is a world of rules. It is a world of hierarchy. And, if you go into the mafia, then even more so than in organized gangs. So there is a very interesting parallel between the way people would operate in an office and in a way people operate on the streets.
Yeah. Well, as Mike puts it, there are bad priests and there are honorable thieves.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think
that's the heart of it, for sure.
And I think what I'm seeing now is that how the transition from Jimmy to Saul is really about him finding that balance. Like Kim says at one point, you'll be your own man. And really that's what he is when he becomes Saul Goodman. He finds that balance, that middle ground between the good lawyer fighting the just fight and the con man that he just is. That's who he is.
Yeah, the balance between your moral compass and your personal ambitions.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out one thing, and just because the chat said it needs to be addressed, Michelle McLaren did not direct Ozymandias, Ryan Johnson did.
Oh.
And I also have to say, guys, we are running out of time. I want to know about the projects you're working on outside of Better Call Saul. Michael, tell us about what's going on.
Tell her what's going on. Wow. What I can talk about is I have 2 short films that I'm post-producing right now, which I'll gladly show you guys, and you guys can give me your opinion on it. Which should be released, which should be done pretty soon. So I'm very interested in producing. I'm trying to use as much of my free time as I can in producing, and we have some offers with my agency that hopefully I'll have the time to do before season 2.
Cool.
Awesome.
Great.
Where can your fans follow you on Twitter, find you, and tweet at you how much they love you?
Yes.
Get free copies of Far Cry 3?
Positive things.
Positive things. My Twitter handle is @MandoMichael.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to answer as many questions as I can. Following this podcast right away, I'll jump right on Twitter on the way home and
Great.
try to answer as many questions as I can. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's really been a joy having you here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
honestly, it's been a real pleasure meeting and speaking to all of you guys. And I think everybody at AfterBuzz was so kind in the way they received us. So it's a great experience. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Zach, where can the people find you?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at @ZachWilson, ThatZachWilson, and a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz. Tomorrow we're talking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then Archer's finale on Thursday night. Be sure to tune in.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Pegah Rad, also the House of Cards after show tonight at 11, and tomorrow the following and forever.
Okay, and Stephen.
Hey guys, you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux, StPHNLEMIEUX, and check out our sister network, Popcorn Talk, which I'm producing. Check out all the shows we have there. We got some good stuff coming up.
Okay, and you can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MATTLIEBERMAN. You can find all my videos on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Matt Lieberman. Got a lot of wonderful positivity, advice content 4 days a week. I'm also doing Mad Men and Orphan Black coming up very, very soon here on AfterBuzz TV. And of course, SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week for the finale. Good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Better call you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.